Hey everybody, this is Carnabrin, and this video is going to be a little different from my normal videos, which is good. So I've just beaten Final Fantasy VII Remake for the first time, and I have some emotions and some thoughts for this game, so I wanted to talk about them. I do want to make like a review, like a well thought out, scripted review of the game where I just take a more like measured approach to talking about the game. So I will do that. But I also wanted to get my raw emotions for the ending, because that was some shit. There's going to be spoilers ahead. So if you don't want spoilers, don't listen to this, because I'm going to be talking about everything that I can think of on the spot. So I haven't finished uploading the game on my channel, so if you're watching along my playthrough, don't listen to this until you get to the end. Then give this a listen, because I'm going to be talking about stuff that hasn't happened yet on my channel. Alright, so Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? When this was announced, I immediately, like, this is something I wanted for forever, right? Like, since I played the first game, and since I saw that graphics could get better with time, I immediately thought, wouldn't it be cool if they made Final Fantasy VII with better graphics? Because the graphical capabilities at the time are the only thing that I think that game lacks. You can argue for other things. You can argue that it's not that difficult. You can argue that the writing is not that good. But I feel like the writing problem is just lost in translation, and I feel like the battle system is fine. And it adapts, right? The better you do, the more difficult things get. They put some super bosses in there if you really want to challenge yourself. So I feel like those things are fine. I feel like the real problem is just the visuals. So I think a lot of fans sort of feel the same way I did, you know? I hear there are a lot of Final Fantasy VII purists who just wanted the original game, upscale, you know, good backgrounds, upscaled graphics, and modern, you know, models for the character, and that's it. Like, they didn't want anything else. Word for word remake with just a better coat of paint, basically. And I understand that. I would have been happy with that too, but I also would be happy with them doing something a little different. So they announced this game in 2015, I think, officially, right? 2015. I mean, there were rumors before that, but they officially announced it way back when. And immediately, I think they're gonna ruin it. I think they're going to trash this game, because at that point Dirge of Cerberus had come out, Advent Children had come out, and Crisis Core had come out, and there are a bunch of other spin-offs. There's a mobile phone game, and so in Advent Children, Dirge of Cerberus, and Crisis Core, they made changes to the plot that were, in my opinion, completely awful. Advent Children, the characters, the rest of the party is pushed aside to make way for Cloud and a little bit of Tifa. The new characters that are introduced are shallow. They're just bad guys for the sake of being bad guys. They bring people back from the dead. They bring back Rufus. They bring back Sang, but he might have not died. You know, it just wasn't the same quality of storytelling. And you could even argue that it goes against the ending of Final Fantasy VII. You know, like, Sephiroth still exists, even though Cloud completely destroys him. Genova's head is around, even though they defeat her completely, it seemed, in the original, you know? Like, the crater. Holy rushed through the crater, destroying all the evils, I imagine, as it went through, right? So I imagine it would have destroyed Genova's head. Um, there's so many inconsistencies and it's bad. It's nice to look at, right? When I first saw it, I was so happy just to see Cloud again and to see Tifa, and the fight with Sephiroth was fun to watch. The fight scenes were great. It was so pretty, but the story was terrible. Then I played Dirge of Cerberus, which was like, it's like Shawshank Redemption when he crawls through the sewer pipe with all the shit in it, except that at the end you're just in a room with shit instead of outside the prison. That's what Dirge of Cerberus is like. It's completely terrible. The gameplay is bad. The visuals in game are bad. The story it hurts physically to listen to the story of Dirge of Cerberus. It's bad. It's completely awful. And it has the same problem that Advent Children did, where it emphasizes Vincent and pushes everybody else out of the spotlight. Which, for stories that you have a wide range of characters that are working together as a team or family, I think is a big detriment. But whatever. Dirge of Cerberus is awful. And then we have Crisis Core, which I didn't play, but I watched all the story segments. So I watched the story. So I know the story. And that was also trash. That they took Gact, which is a musician, and they made him into a main character. Just because he was a fan of the show or the game. And the characters don't talk like normal people, and everything's very pretty. There's no substance. There's a convoluted clone plot line. It's terrible. Crisis Core is crap. Zack's character is nice. Like, he's a fun character, but his game is awful. It's awful. They are not creative. They introduce Zack and Aerith the same way they introduce Cloud to Aerith. He falls through the ceiling of the church, which makes no sense. You know? You think when Cloud fell through, she'd be like, "Oh, this happened exactly the same as the last." No, it's stupid. It's awful. So, coming off of, I can go more into it, but Genesis steals Sephiroth's thunder. Genesis becomes the reason why Sephiroth goes insane, instead of the revelation that he's like a genetic experiment. I don't want to go into it. Have yourself a dumb apple and play Crisis Core, or watch the story, and you'll feel the way I feel, or you won't. All right. So anyway, now after watching Square Enix do that to the Final Fantasy VII sequels, when the remake was announced, I was like, "This is going to be awful. This is going to be a trash fire. They're gonna do what they did to Star Wars, and they're gonna ruin something I loved." Or they're gonna do what they did to Game of Thrones, and they're going to ride the high and then just completely destroy it. I could make more examples, but let's get into it, right? So, as we get closer to the release date, people are playing it, and they're like, "It's not bad." People are optimistic. Maximilian, which is a guy I watch on YouTube, he seems to have the same passion that I do, Final Fantasy VII Original, and he plays the remake and he enjoys it, and he's like, "Oh, the things are gonna be good." So after hearing that, I'm like, all right, well, I'll give it a chance, right? I was always gonna investigate, but now I'm investigating optimistically. So the demo comes out. I play the demo. I'm a little sketchy on the battle system, but everything else seems great, right? Visually, the game is fantastic. The music is phenomenal. And the characters seem to be the same characters from Final Fantasy VII, right? Cloud is Cloud Strife. Barrett is Barrett Wallace. Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie are Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie. Jessie's a little different. She's a little bit more forward about her crush on Cloud, which is a character change. I don't mind it. I don't. It's fine. But and after like repeat playthroughs of the demo, I played it like 3 times. The battle system started to click for me, and I was like, you know what, this is okay. It's fun, which is the most important part. It wasn't at first. It took some time to learn it, but once I learned it, it stayed learned, and I was like, okay, this is good. It's better than Kingdom Hearts, and it's not bad. So it's good, and it's fun, and it looks good, and you feel good when you win a battle. Some of the boss fights, or the boss fight in the demo, felt a little bit like this is a sponge, like a damage sponge, or he felt a little meaty for no reason. But that's okay. It's a boss fight, right? It was fine. So I'm becoming more optimistic now. So then the game releases. Final Fantasy Remake hits store shelves, quote unquote, because we're having this epidemic right now. But Final Fantasy VII Remake is released, and people start playing it. A lot of people are enjoying it. Some people got it, before I did. So I'm hearing whispers, but I'm trying to avoid anything substantial. Then finally I play it, and I play the demo part, and there's a little flashback that's added to Cloud remembering Tifa as a child, and it's fine. It's like short, sweet. You get to see like what he thinks of her very little bit, but it's good, and that's the only really change from the demo part. Then at the reactor, it's revealed, is destroyed by Shinra in the demo. Like Jessie's bomb doesn't completely destroy the reactor like it does in the original. It just disables it, and then Shinra causes the explosion to be worse by having their robots basically turn on the reactor itself. I thought this change was bad. I thought taking the responsibility away from Avalanche, it kind of washes their hands of the blood that was on it in the original game, and it makes them less deep. It's that was a weight that they had to carry in the original game. And they don't know that Shinra did that, but I imagine that at one point it would be revealed to them, right? So I was like, this is bad. This makes our heroes too clean. Because in Final Fantasy VII, like, part of the story is the fact that their bombing was a mistake. Like, that wasn't the way to go about saving the planet. And they kind of know that, but they just have no better idea of what to do. So that was one change where I was like, I don't know about this. But in the actual game itself, they still feel that weight. You walk through the city streets in Chapter 2, and you see people reacting as if 9/11 had just happened. People are scared. People are hurt. Cloud's kind of walking through and taking notice of things. He's not really commenting, but he's seeing the people react to this bombing. It's good. It's good. Jessie feels guilty. The other Avalanche members also feel guilty, but Barrett's like, there have to be some sacrifices. We're doing this for the fate of everybody. This is our choice. This is how we're doing it. It's my, I'll take the blame. But we got to keep doing this. And that's good. That's deep. And what's beautiful there is would he feel that way if Marlene was caught in the blast? So it's got some moral you know, it's got some things to make you think about the morality of what they're doing, which is good. Then there are flashbacks, like Cloud's memory is triggered by some of the fires, and he has a flashback to Nibelheim, and he sees Sephiroth just in his face. And again, I was like, they shouldn't do this. They should stay their hand with Sephiroth if they're just going to be doing Midgar. They should stay their hand here. They should reveal him at the end. That could be the big, like, oh, what a twist, like, this guy is the real bad. But no, right at the beginning, they show you his face, you follow him, you confront him, and he seems to be in a hallucination. They allude to the fact that maybe he killed Cloud's mother right in front of his face, which was alluded to in the original game, but they make it more blatant in the remake. I wouldn't have done this, but I was willing to go along with it because it's in Cloud's head, and a lot of people do know who Sephiroth is. Even people who are playing the game for the first time, like, they know who the bad guy is. He's a very famous bad guy. So I was willing to let this go. You know, I think it's a bad idea, but I was like, all right, whatever. You know. So then we run into Aerith with a TH, which again, I mean, it's not a big deal, but whatever. I was gonna say, like, you know, we changed the names and we keep the changed names of the Capcom characters, like M. Bison and Vega and what's the other one's name? M. Bison, Vega, and Balrog. Their names are all switched around in the American versions. I don't know, like, why do we have to fix Aerith to Aerith? I mean, they're basically the same. Anyway, that's besides the point. So she's being attacked, quote unquote, by these weird Harry Potter ghosts. These cloaked specters are swirling around her. We don't see them. Cloud doesn't see them. But he gets close, and he has another hallucination of Sephiroth. Sephiroth places his hand on Aerith, which gives me the feeling that he knows about her. You know, that Sephiroth knows that she's... It's like he knows he's gonna kill her. You know, like, I get that weird feeling. Like, he's taunting him. Like, Sephiroth is... He says to Cloud, you can't protect anyone, not even yourself. And it's like he's referencing the fact that he murdered Aerith in the first game. And I'm like, that's weird. But then he disappears, Cloud grabs his head, and Aerith actually runs over to Cloud and asks him if he's okay, after he was, like, looking at her, like, wondering the same thing. Which I thought was a good little, you know, it's a nice little touch. So then she starts talking to you, and emotions start to hit you. You feel like you're seeing your old friend. You know, it's like you're seeing a friend again that you didn't think you'd see again, and it literally makes you want to cry. She goes to hand Cloud the flower, and it's a choice whether you take it or not, and it plays her music softly, and it's like, oh my god, like it's like they know they're playing with your emotions, but it's so beautiful and well done. It's absolutely fantastic, absolutely. So, but here's another problem: is later on I found out that taking the flower is not a choice. If you take it, she'll just give it to you. If you refuse it, she'll still give it to you, no matter what you do. It's that was frustrating to find that out, but I found that out afterwards. So anyway, let's continue talking about what happens from then on. So she gives Cloud the flower, and she starts getting bothered again by these invisible specters, right? Um, so she grabs Cloud's hand, and now he can see them. And he's like, whoa, because there's like a lot of them. They're floating around her. He tries to fight them, I think. And I think he like disperses one or whatever. But there's many more. And they're swirling around, and they're interrupted, or the whole event is interrupted by Shinra soldiers, the foot soldiers, finding Cloud and trying to stop him. Eris runs away and says, nice meeting you, and is chased down the alley by one of these weird ghosts. So I was thinking that maybe these are the dead, like the people who died in the reactor bombing, and Eris is just having like her ability to commune with the dead is sort of overwhelming her at this point, because a lot of people just died and she feels them all dying right away, and she's freaking out, right? So I'm like, all right, if that's what that is, that's cool. That's not what that is. That's not what that is. It's far, far more stupid, but we'll get into that later. So whatever. So you fight the soldiers. It's fantastic. The music kicks up. It's a great sequence. Let's move on. That part's great. You get to the train. Cloud mentions to the rest of the team that he fought these invisible enemies. They're like, oh, that's weird. And then they move on. Blah, blah, blah. You take the train. You go to Sector 7. You see Tifa again. And that, again, it's like seeing an old friend. It's like you feel like Cloud does, like seeing his old friend. Her personality is spot on. Cloud, once again, they remove a choice from you. Cloud automatically gives Tifa the flower. They take away the chance to give it to Marlene to kind of cheer her up. Which, once again, I was like, oh, that's a shame. You know, we're losing the ability to make decisions in this game. Which I understand why they did that, because they hired voice actors, and they hired expensive voice actors this time. Quality voice actors, which I'll just say now are fantastic. All the voice actors in this game are spot on, and they do their job so well. Even when they're saying lines that are ridiculous, they do it well. And, you know, Tifa's one of them, and actually getting to like talk to Tifa as Cloud is another phenomenal we'll leave it at that moment. It's another just fantastic thing. You feel like you came home. Another change they make is the team doesn't celebrate. Like in the original game, you get back to Sector 7 and everybody celebrate. They're eating and celebrating, and in this game they're not doing that, which is another missed opportunity, I think. But it's nighttime, and Barrett's like just gonna tuck Marlene in, you know, take her to bed. And Tifa says, well, we can talk about money later, but right now there's an apartment that you can stay at. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Like, we're gonna expand on this part of the game. And that's basically what happens. Tifa takes you to an apartment, and she says, like, there's some people here that could use you as a mercenary. So you actually end up doing mercenary work. And you do it with Tifa. And it's cool. Like, the second... Not the second hour, or I guess the third hour. Right? The third hour of the game is just you hanging out with Tifa doing mercenary work. And it's cool. You know, the side quests they're not anything special. They're not... they're fun because you're learning how to fight with Cloud still, and now you're learning Tifa, and it's cool using the two characters. So you're enjoying yourself. You know, it's not amazing by any means, but it's you feel good. The visuals are fantastic. The lower, just from now on, just assume that whatever I'm talking about, everything visually is phenomenal, because it is. The maps are a little bare bones. You know, they're not, which in the original game they're the same way. You know, Final Fantasy VII, the Midgar was very linear. And this game, it's also very linear, which is fine. There's no problem. It's fine. So you're basically running around a hub doing these little jobs for people, and you're making money because Avalanche in this game doesn't have the funds to pay you right away. So you make a little money on the side, and then eventually they do collect enough to pay you. If you do all the side quests, you have a moment to talk to Tifa alone, and she basically asks you out on a date. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. That's different, right? Right away, like she seems interested in what Cloud has been doing since she's seen him last. She seems to like him. There's a little moment where Cloud is going to kill Johnny because he's spilled the beans to some Shinra guys, and Cloud is going to silence him, and Tifa stops him, and then he's also going to like murder the Shinra soldiers that they knocked out trying to save Johnny, and Tifa's like, you're scaring me. Like, what's with you? And she says, like, his eyes are different. Cloud's eyes are different from what she remembers. And Cloud says, well, that's the Mako. My eyes glow because of the Mako. Also, his eyes don't glow. They're kind of a weird color, but they should glow. That's another thing that they should have done, but whatever. Anyway, but Tifa's not talking about that. She's talking about the fact that he looks like a murderer. Like, he looks like a apathetic, like the wide-eyed kid that she liked a little bit, or the kid that she talked to on the well that kind of touched her heart a little bit, is different now. Now he's kind of cold, and she says, that scares me. You're scaring me the way you're acting. That's a great moment. It's a great little moment. It's great that Cloud doesn't realize what she's talking about. It's great that she's like, what's up with you? Like, she calls him out on being a little monstrous. At this point, I'm going to stop talking in detail about all these little parts. I'm just going to generalize. So for most of this game, these little character moments are fantastic. Like, these little sweet moments. There's a part where you're sitting in the bar and Tifa is telling you that she feels uncomfortable with terrorism. Like, she wants to fight against Shinra, she wants to save the planet, but she doesn't like the collateral damage, and she doesn't like the way they're going about it. And her heart's just not in that place. And it's beautiful because it shows that Tifa is like the most empathetic of the whole team. And Cloud tells her, like, if you don't like it, don't do it. Like, he sort of sticks with her, and it's a beautiful little moment. They actually do give you a choice, which does matter, which is whether or not you take a drink from her, which affects your quote-unquote relationship with her, which we'll talk about later. But these moments are just great, and you go on a little side, it's not a side quest, it's part of the main story, but you go on an adventure with Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, which is clearly there to let you get to know them better, and so that you'll like them, and it works perfectly. Like, they're fun. All three of them are fun. Their characters are explored more in detail. And it's great. It's a great little cycle. It's fun to play. It's once again, it looks beautiful. The music is fantastic, and it doesn't like really directly affect the story. Like, it has no negative connotations to the story. It's great. It's fantastic. So I just want to emphasize, like, by that there are changes in this game that I am totally down with. Like, the battle system, I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if this game was like an homage to turn-based combat? Because I'm sure there's a way we could do turn-based combat in 2020 that would be phenomenal. You know what I mean? I was thinking, wouldn't it be great if we could have this game be like an homage to the pre-rendered backgrounds, because Resident Evil Remake did that, and it was one of the most beautiful. It's still one of the most beautiful games ever. I understand, like, after moving around the world in 3D and looking up at the plate from the slums and experiencing Midgar in 3D, like, I understand why it's nice to have that too. But I feel like we also could have had beautiful, pre-rendered backgrounds that would have looked fantastic. That probably would have looked, like you're walking through reality. But that's, these are not such a big deal. And a lot of these changes are really good. So now, after the mission with Avalanche, Cloud wakes up and there's a swirling mass of these specters that were attacking Eris are now attacking everywhere. They're everywhere. They're swarming all over the place like locusts. And Tifa wakes you up and she's like, "Shit's gone crazy. Help us out." So you fight the ghosts, the specters, and I just want to make a note here that Tifa's not afraid of them. No one's, like, people are like, what the hell is going on? But they're fighting them and they're not afraid of them. So long story short, you fight them off, but before they leave, they injure Jessie's leg so that Jessie can't go on the second bombing run. And so they have to rehire Cloud to replace her, basically. I'm like, all right. I had thought so far that these specters were like the dead, or possibly a product of Genova or something like that. But at this point, I start to get the feeling that there's something else. Something far more stupid. Like, I feel that deep inside, but I kind of ignore it because I want to enjoy the game. So we head out on the second bombing mission. There's a beautiful moment on the train. And then we're running through the subway and we fight a mech, and that's great. And then we get to a part where we're under the plate, but over the slums. And it's interesting because it has some lore, right? Like, you find out that the plates have artificial suns, which in the original I don't think they did really. I think there were the street lights, and that was it, And the original was much darker, where in the daytime it was still kind of dark in the slums, because there's this big plate covering overhead. This game, it's kind of, it's lit, it's sunny. Which is fine. There should be a big shadow over most of the city, but whatever. But this part, you start to feel like the game is padded. Like, this is like maybe 10 minutes. Not even. This is maybe 5 minutes in the original game, this section. And in this game, it's an hour. It's an hour of a very boring dungeon, quote unquote. And you just feel like, oh, the developer said, wouldn't it be cool if this thing that took 5 minutes was an hour and a half? And that feeling is bad. But you're kind of enjoying it because the fighting is fun. And the characters are fun. The little moments. There's not many of them. That's one of the gripes I have about this game, is I wish, because you have voice actors and because, like, it's the future, you could have more moments where these characters are fleshed out. They could talk to you during battle, which they do, but it very quickly starts to repeat. Tifa starts talking about wanting to take a shower immediately, and she doesn't shut up about it for the entire game. Barrett does the little victory fanfare jingle. He's like, da, 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 da. And you're like, that's not the same as having the victory fanfare jingle, Like, I appreciate the joke, but it was made in Final Fantasy 15, and also I missed the victory fanfare. But whatever, this is a slow point in the game, but I'm still willing to forgive it, because it can't be fucking fantastic all the way through, right? So we get to the Reactor 5, and it's blue for some reason. I guess just to make it look different. Like the Mako is blue too, instead of the greenish blue that it usually is depicted as. But whatever. I mean, it looks nice. It makes less sense, but it looks nice. You fight Airbuster, which that fight is fantastic. Again, the music is fantastic. He does feel very bullet spongy, but it's fine, There's a little part where they mention that soldiers, this was in Crisis Core, but soldiers degrade. Like, they basically trade their life for power, because the process of making a soldier will shorten one's lifespan, which I think is fine. I think it's a fine, addition, Tifa finds out about that for the first time, and she's, upset because, she's starting to like this dude. So it's fine. That's a fine thing to keep from Crisis Core. Don't put Genesis in this game, please. Anyway. So Cloud falls, and he ends up in the church. And thankfully, Aerith doesn't mention that this has happened before. He has a moment where he's in his mind, just like in the original game, and Cloud's subconscious, I suppose, is talking to Cloud. And it's the same as the original game. They didn't change it. They didn't make it like Zack is talking to Cloud, which they might do. They might reveal that that's Zack the whole time, which would be terrible. But whatever. Anyway. So I noticed something here where the conversation between Cloud and Aerith is different from the original. In the original, they have an introductory conversation. They ask each other they have a greeting conversation, who are you? What do you do? Like simple stuff like that. In this one, they take away a choice from you where you can choose to remember Aerith or not remember her, and actually kind of insult her, which was funny in the original, but whatever. But they shorten this conversation, and Reno busts into the church a little earlier than he's supposed to. And Aerith mentions that Cloud is her bodyguard before he mentions it, that he's a mercenary. Before he mentions he's a mercenary, she just assumes he is. And she says she thought so from the sword, which I guess is alluding to the fact that she knew Zack, and Zack, I guess, told her that. I think he tells her in Crisis Core that he wants to be a mercenary. But it just felt, I felt like this is wrong. It doesn't naturally flow, kind of thing. But once again, it's not a big deal. So then you fight Reno. The fight's fun. Aerith is cheering you on and telling you to not hurt the flowers, which is funny. You win the fight, and Cloud is going to cut Reno in half, and which I think is sort of out of character for him. It's in the original, you kill people, but you only kill them when you don't kill them after you've beaten them down, right? You knock out a lot of people too, and if you knock them out, that works in the original game. But this one, he goes for a kill shot, and the specters fly into him and Aerith and push them into the back of the church and sort of force them to flee. And now at this point, I'm getting pissed off, because in the original, they're running from Reno. They're avoiding Reno. And Reno's chasing them with a bunch of soldiers who are shooting at them. And Cloud is trying to get Aerith out of the church safely. In this, there are swarms of these specters preventing you from going to certain places. They're blocking you from getting a materia. And they're fucking annoying. They're interfering with the drama and the story that is happening,
Like Reno comes in the church, and you're like, oh, this is interesting. What's happening here? Like I imagine somebody who's playing the game for the first time is like, oh, this guy's cool. I fought him. Like, what happens next? And then it's like interrupted. It's like somebody waving their hand in front of your face while something's happening. And I'm just like, oh, like now I can feel strong. Now I feel stronger that something stupid is on the horizon, right? But because so much is good about the game, I'm just like, maybe it won't be so bad. So anyway, you escape the church, or you go through the church while being sort of protected by these specters. Like they're guarding Aerith from getting shot. And they're kind of pushing you to leave, which is dumb. You should want to leave because soldiers are coming and shooting at you, right? So then you get out of the church and you're on the rooftops and you have a nice moment, a nice crossing the rooftops moment, which again, it was 5 minutes in the original game, if that. And in this game, it takes about 20 minutes. But you have that with Aerith. But it's nicer because they have a deeper conversation on the rooftops. But again, it's not as much as it could be. You know? It's like you do talk to her, but you basically go over the same things with a little bit more flirting that you did in the original game. But it's fine. You know, it's not bad. There are funny moments. Aerith's personality finally comes through, and she does feel like the same Aerith from the first game. And it's good. Then you have to fight your way to Sector 5. You know, once again, it feels like padding. This is, again, a little long. But it's fine. You get to Sector 5, and you find out that this is going to be another hub area where Cloud is going to be doing jobs for people. And so I'm starting to, you know, I see the pattern now. Like whenever you go to a new place, like he's going to be doing jobs, which is okay. Like you're actually doing mercenary work. In the original Final Fantasy VII, Cloud completes one job as a mercenary and then basically fails his second job. So I don't mind it. It's cool. And you kind of make a name for yourself by doing these jobs. It's interesting. You learn there's some character development. You learn that Aerith is tending or helping this orphanage out, which is very in line with her character. Makes her very sweet. You know, that kind of makes her a little deeper. That's great. You meet her mother, and her mother is not into you. You know, she's like knows right away that you're trouble, which is cool. You have a moment where Cloud is forced to help pick flowers for the orphanage, which he doesn't want to do because it's not cool, right? So it's fun, and there's some good character development moments. All right, so we move on, and we get to the playground once again through going through a large, what feels like padding section of the game. We finally get to the playground, and we talk to Aerith. And Tifa is on the Chocobo cart. And Cloud runs up to her, and he's like, "What's going on? What is this?" And she's like, "Oh, this is a change. Like in the original game, he sees her, but he doesn't know what's going on." Which leads him to worry, and which leads to your adventure in Wall Market. In this game, he actually jumps on the cart, and he's like, "Where are you going? What's going on? Well, what's the dealio?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm doing something. I'm gonna be okay. Don't worry about me." And it's actually kind of sweet. She says, "You know how much ass I can kick. Like, don't worry about me." And Cloud says, I do know." And he lets go of the cart. Like, he trusts her to be able to take care of herself, which is kind of sweet. I mean, it's different, right? Like, in the original, he's just like, "Is that Tifa? What's wrong?" And then he finds out that she's the new girl for the local mob boss. And he freaks out, and he wants to go save her. In this one, she tells him what she's doing. And she says she's going to be okay. And he's like, "All right, I trust you to
be all right. You know, some people say it's cold, but I kind of see it as he has faith in this girl. But Eris runs up and she's like, you know, Tifa doesn't know what she's getting into. We have to look out for her, don't you? You want to look out for her, don't you? So she kind of convinces Cloud to go help Tifa, which is, I feel a little odd. I don't know what to think about this interaction. You know, like it has its nice point where the Cloud's like trusts Tifa and has faith in her abilities, but it also has him like not like looking out for his friend. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Like I feel like both interactions have their good and low points, but whatever. So we go to Wall Market and we find out basically the same thing, that Tifa's gonna be the Don's wife for a night. And there's some new characters that are added. I don't know how much I want to go into this, but the new characters are fun. One thing I didn't like is I didn't like that it's not Eris's idea to dress Cloud up as a woman. Like in the original game, she gets a big kick out of that. She's gonna go in and she's going to get Tifa out, and Cloud's like, no, it's dangerous, I'm not going to let you go in alone. And she's like, well, what do you want to do? And he's like, well, I can't bust in because then that could put Tifa in danger too. So he doesn't know what to do. And then she comes up with this great idea that she loves, that she's going to dress Cloud up as a woman and sneak him in. And she basically, like, you play as Cloud, but it's basically her grabbing him by the hand and leading him around to find the things to dress him up as a woman, right? And I thought that was so cute in the original, you know, and it goes with her personality, and it's like a kind of idea that she would have. In this one, it's kind of decided for you. I forget exactly what happens, but it's not Eris who dresses him up. It's one of the other characters is the one who completely dresses Cloud up. You don't like assemble the outfit. And like Eris is not the one pushing for it, you know? It's like I don't know. It's weird. The side quests in Wall Market are fun. They're different, but they're fun. You're like, the things you do are quite different from the original game. You're not helping a dressmaker get his inspiration. I mean, I'm not gonna go into that. It's different. Once again, it's a mixed bag, right? Like, there's some stupid parts where, like, Cloud has to do a dance to please one of these people who's helping him out, and he mentions before that he doesn't dance, right? And the practice for doing the dance is he swings his sword around, and like, in order to get the timing, there's like a practice thing, and he swings the sword when you do the practice thing. And I'm like, that makes sense, because he shouldn't want to dance, and he should be bad at it. So then you go and you do the dance, and it's a nice, spectacular musical number, and Cloud dances like he's been dancing every day for the last, 15 years of his life. Like, he's perfect. And I'm like, I kind of don't want to rag on it, because it's kind of a celebration of not worrying about gender differences and just do whatever. Let yourself go. Don't judge. Like, it's all that kind of wrapped into this moment. So I like that. But it's out of character. Cloud is always trying to be cool at this point in the game. And he doesn't see being a dancer as being cool. Also, this is probably the first time he's ever danced. He should be terrible at it. Like, I feel like it would have been funnier if he was awful. You know? Like, it would be funny if you get everything, all the dance steps right, all the quick time events right, and he just falls on his face, or he doesn't look like much of anything, and then the other guy is dancing around him fabulously, let's say.
yeah, once again, I'm mixed. Like, I'm like, it's fun to look at. It's a fun moment. It celebrates these nice things, but it's out of character and it doesn't go along with the story, you know? So I'm torn on that. It would be funny, or I think it would be better if that place opened up. Like, the first dance, you're terrible, no matter what. And then that place opens up as a side quest area, or like a you know, a place where you can do this mini game, and then in the mini game you can have Cloud and maybe the other characters come dance, and that would be fun. That would be okay, because then that's like a side thing, you know what I mean? So anyway, much of the rest plays out. I don't like, so you get to Don Cornero, and it's no longer like, there's no longer the choice between Aerith, Cloud, and Tifa. The Cornero always picks Cloud. Once again, this is probably due to them having voice actors, and they would have to voice, and now they would have to animate and make the three decisions different, and you know, it costs money, and they don't want to spend money. They want to make it right. So that's another thing that I think is a detriment, but it's fine, I guess, you know. Much of that is the way it used to be. So you get tossed into the sewer, you go through the sewer, once again padding. The sewer is 5 minutes, and now it's going to take an hour. And you get to the train graveyard. Now there's some plot holes, right? In the train graveyard, there are ghosts, and the ghosts are emphasized in Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I think is fine. I think that's a fine change. It's interesting. The ghosts have their own little like backstory, which is cool. Here's the problem. Tifa's afraid of ghosts, right? Aerith isn't, which makes sense because she's been talking with dead people since she was a kid, or communing with the planet, or whatever the hell. You know, she's in touch with spirits since she was a kid. But Tifa's afraid of ghosts. And Cloud's not into them either. But they fought these specters, which also look like ghosts and have all the qualities of the ghosts. They're invisible. They go through walls, right? So why is Tifa now afraid of ghosts when before she wasn't? It's a fucking inconsistency. It's cute when they do it in the graveyard, but because they have these fucking specters, it doesn't make any sense. And as you can tell by my tone, I'm starting to get annoyed. Like, now it's getting dumb. So whatever. You go through the train graveyard. It's a nice little sequence. Aerith gets taken away by the ghosts, and who seem to want, like, you know, like somebody to play with. And she has a flashback to when she was a kid, and kids didn't want to play with her. It's another nice moment, another beautiful moment. Great moment in this game. So you finish the train graveyard, you go to the pillar collapse. Wedge falls off, and Aerith tends to his wounds. Now Cloud runs up the pillar, this time alone, this time without Tifa, and he starts fighting his way up. Now the control switches over to Aerith, and you control her going to try to save Marlene, which I think is fantastic. She's like trying to help people escape. She's helping another kid. You see people that are actually evacuating Sector 7, which is good. She warns people. It's great. Like, it's a great little sequence. Finally, you find Marlene, and Marlene says, "You smell nice, even though you've just been in the sewer." And there's a moment where Marlene, who's been talking about, like, Black Wind, like fucking Chrono Trigger, she looks at Aerith, and she knows something, right? This doesn't make any sense. Marlene is not an ancient. Why is she in touch with any of this stuff? And Aerith shushes her. She puts her finger to her lips and says, "Shh, like, don't tell anybody." And this alludes to that maybe Aerith and Marlene know that Aerith is going to die, right? And once again, my brain is like, oh God, don't. What are you doing? Like so much of this game is good. Don't do stupid stuff, please. You know, like I'm sensing that this game is a sequel. Like I'm sensing that the events of the first game have happened, and some people know about them. And like I'm subconsciously trying to ignore it because I'm enjoying the game, and I don't want there to be stupid in it, but I can feel the stupid coming. All right. So we move back to the pillar. We have some nice moments with Cloud and Biggs, and then Cloud and Jesse. Tifa joins you. So now, once again, these characters... This is an intense moment. The pillar, which holds up the plate, is being attacked. It's very dramatic. It's very intense. It's pulling you in way more than the original game did, because you care about these characters more now because you know them more. And now they're getting trashed. They're getting shot and they're dying. And you want to like focus on what's going on because you're getting hurt because your friends are dying. And these specters are flying around in your face while this is happening, interrupting the scene and taking away the focus. It's like I said, it's like somebody waving their hand in front of your face while you're trying to watch a good movie, or like someone talking to you while you're trying to read. Like it's distracting and it's annoying. And at this point, I'm done with them. Like they're in the fucking way. They're actively ruining... Like, this change is actively ruining the game. A lot of the other changes are improving it or are like a sidestep. You know, like, not better, not worse, but at least just as good. But these specters are bad. They are actively making the game worse. Yeah. So at this point, I'm done with them. So the pillar falls. Sector 7 is destroyed. It hits harder than the original game did because Tifa starts talking about like the bar being lost. You know, Barrett gets upset because he thinks he lost his daughter. That moment's really good. When you fight Rude, this is a little separate, but when you fight Rude, he doesn't attack Tifa. He tries to like knock her out instead of actually going after her, which is fantastic. So you go to you go to Aerith's house. You find Marlene is there sleeping. But Aerith's mom tells you to leave Aerith alone. Don't save her, which I find to be stupid. But they change the story around a little bit in this game, which I'll talk about later. So the team decides to go back to Sector 7 and see if they can recover anything, like it's to dig through the rubble. So they do. Excuse me. So they do, and they end up finding a Shinra laboratory under Sector 7, where Shinra is using people to make monsters. This is completely new to the game. I could take it or leave it, but in the lab, like, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. It's just there. So in this lab you find Wedge. Wedge has survived the pillar falling somehow, right? Like, Aerith, I guess, healed him and he avoided it somehow, even though it showed him being crushed. Or it alluded to him being crushed, right? It's getting to be like I can't think of a good example, but like maybe Game of Thrones in the later seasons, where if you don't see a character get maimed or like disfigured, You know what I mean? Like if you don't see the character get crushed, they survived. You know, like there's a lot of stuff like that, and like at that point I was like, really, like, so death, we're not going to be killing people, so there's going to be no consequences in this game. So now in my heart there lies the doubt. You know what I mean? Like the doubt that had been brushed away by the rest of this game being fantastic is now starting to grow like cancer in my, in my heart. So I'm like, all right, well, whatever. It doesn't really make a difference, right? We save Wedge. We fight a boss. We go back to Aerith's house. We talk to Marlene, who's awake now. And we have a beautiful scene with Tifa for me. But I found out later that you can have it with multiple characters. Tifa realizes in this scene that Aerith is the one who gave Cloud the flower. And she calls him out on it. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like, you know? Like, she did the math. And she figured out that Cloud, re-gifted her a flower. Which, in the original, he buys it. And even in this one, you can just buy it. You know what I mean? It's not... it's not really a re-gift. You don't know why he bought it or why he takes it. Like, maybe he takes it to give it to Tifa. Like, he doesn't have a relationship with Aerith at this point. But I still think it's funny that she calls him out on that. But she also has a moment where she says, Shinra's taken everything away again. And she actually opens up. And she begins to cry. And he opens up and gives her a hug. And he hugs her a little too hard. And she's like, you're hurting me. I can't breathe. Which is a sweet moment. Like, it's like, there's so many, like, good moments, and this is one of them. It shows how Cloud, like, although he's cold, will open up to the people he cares about. It shows Tifa, who is normally very quiet about her feelings and keeps everything inside, opening up to this person that she's starting to have feelings for. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It can also be a scene where Aerith visits you in a dream. This scene I have a little bit more problems with. In this scene, she's talking about how she feels about you. And she tells you not to fall in love with her. Once again, alluding to the fact that she knows what's going to happen to her. Now I've watched the Aerith scene after I beat the game, so I knew at that point what was going on. But it's just, I don't know, it's weird. And it's like, well, if you know what's going to happen and you don't want me to fall in love with you, why are you flirting with me so much? Why are you grabbing my arm? Why are you, like, literally trying to pull me away from Tifa? Like, why are you... Don't fall in love with me. I'm going to flirt with you every chance I get. You know what I mean? The game would be better if she had no idea what was going on and she just liked Cloud and she was just flirting with him. You know what I mean? Like, if she knows what's going to happen... I'll get more into that later. Let's just move on from now. So after that night, and the nice scene that you have... There can also be a scene with Barrett, which I didn't see yet. So in the next morning, Aerith's mom changes her mind. Cloud convinces her that Hojo is evil, which if she had... if she's been dealing with Shinra her whole life, she must know that these people are evil. She must know that them having Aerith and not letting her go is a problem, right? But whatever. So eventually, you guys decide that you're going to go climb the plate and save Aerith. So you go back to Wall Market, and there's a bunch of side quests that open up. You do some of the side quests. They're fun. There's some challenging ones. You fight a Tonberry. You save some Chocobos, which you don't get to ride, which immediately makes this game terrible. No, I'm just kidding. anyway, side quests, and then you go through Don Cornejo's secret stash of stuff. You get some grappling guns. Some characters get their plots resolved and stuff like that. So you climb the plate again, padding. Something that took 5 minutes now takes 2 hours. But it's okay. It's honestly like the padding. It bothers me, but it's not. It doesn't make the game bad. It's just you can feel it. Would you feel it if you hadn't played the original? Probably not. Maybe a little, but it's not a big deal. So then you get to Shinra HQ, and here's where things the badness starts to set in. Yeah. All right, so you want to sneak into Shinra HQ, and the party decides to jump on a truck that is delivering. They're gonna go through the parking lot, right, in the Shinra building, which is different, but whatever. Makes more sense than going through the front door, or taking the stairs on the side. I guess maybe it doesn't. Anyway, they jump on top of the truck, and they're clearly visible. Barrett's a big dude. Cloud's got a huge sword. They're clearly visible on top of the truck. They jump on top of the truck, which you think the driver would be like, what the fuck was that? It sounded like 3 people jumped on top of my truck. But they get through security, and then Barrett comically falls off, and then they have to fight their way in. No one raises an alarm. It's kind of goofy, but you get in and you get to the lobby, and the lobby's empty. Unlike the original, where the lobby's full of people and then they leave when you bust in. In this one, the lobby's empty completely. There are force fields, which bother me because this world is steampunky. It's got robots, but the technology, there weren't a lot of force fields in the original Final Fantasy VII. There's one that Sephiroth puts up. But there weren't force fields and holograms in the original Final Fantasy VII. Technology, they had robots, but they didn't have that. You know what I mean? It wasn't like the Jetsons, level of technology. And this, they have a little bit more weird, crazy technology that doesn't really fit. The original was steampunky, but instead of steam, it's Mako. This one is future technology-ish. So you go to the entrance. The building looks nice. It looks crazy. It looks super futuristic. There's no one in it in the lobby for some reason. So you do a little mini thing where Tifa gets a card. Once again, so this is a problem. So in the beginning of the game, or in multiple parts of the game, they show Cloud jumping 100 feet in the air and doing flips, and they show him doing these crazy acrobatic and nimble moves. So then they have to jump. They decide they have to jump over a force field in order to get the key card. And all of a sudden, Cloud can no longer do these 100-foot in the air jumps and cut through walls. And all of a sudden, they decide that Tifa has to do it because she's the lightest and she's going to jump along the chandeliers. And she does it so slow and so awkwardly. It's more realistic. But the problem is you've shown the characters, in battle, she's flipping around and jumping and she's got unbelievable coordination. And now she's slowly trying to make her way to this key. And I'm just got my hand in my face. And I'm just oh, my head, my face in my hand. And I'm oh God. I mean, it's okay because other games do this too, but it's even the original, right? In battle, you can be basically immortal gods that summon other immortal gods to destroy your enemies. And then, in the game itself, 3 soldiers will shoot at you and you'll say, oh no, I have to run, but this is different, right? This is 2020 and we know how to tell stories better. So, I thought it would be okay if the characters were a little less overpowered at the beginning. I think Cloud doesn't have to do 100-foot jumps in the air and spin sword moves. in order to look cool. He can look cool while being a little bit more realistic. And of course, you know, he's got a huge sword, which would be heavy, but like, you could make it still fantasy, but have rules to the levels of strength. Like, you know, it's power scaling. And in some stories it's done well, and this it's a little wonky. Anyway, we get the card, and then we get the choice. After we're in the building and we get the card, then we get the choice of whether we're going to take the stairs and avoid detection, or if we're going to take the elevator. So I did both. First, I took the stairs because that I thought was like one of the funniest parts of the original game. I think them running up the stairs and getting tired and complaining is the funniest thing in the whole game in the original Final Fantasy VII. And I was hoping that this would be the same. It is not. The funniest thing about the stairs this time is Tifa can do them no problem. Which is funny because she couldn't do the jumping to the key card. She had trouble with that, but she can do the running part no problem. And Barrett complains. It's not as funny as the original. Tifa doesn't call Barrett a retard. Which, you know, that's a whole other conversation. But so it's not as funny. And then I took the elevator to see what that's like, and there's actually, the elevator is the better choice because Tifa has a little conversation with the guys about like realizing that there are normal people working at the Shinra building, that not everyone is an enemy, you know what I mean? Not everyone's out to get them or to be evil. A lot of people just work here to feed their family and to have a job. And Cloud's like, well, listen, we ain't got time for thinking about these people. We got to save Earth. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. But it's a little moment. It's not quite as good as the other moments in the game, but it's there. So anyway, we're starting to make our way up through the Shinra building, and it's different now. In the original, like, there's Shinra employees doing their thing, and you've got to try to figure out how to get cards to go up to the higher floors. In this one, you walk through a Shinra museum, which is very boring. It doesn't have any really new, like, plot revelations or anything like that, or not even revelations. It doesn't really add much to the story. And they update your card as you walk through the museum, which is odd. It culminates with you going into a hologram chamber, or a virtual reality chamber, which is stupid. Because once again, it's like technology that shouldn't be in the world, really. The holograms are like, you feel like you're there. And this whole sequence is really awful, in my opinion. It shows you the ancients. So it's like, well, we have holograms of like, this is what they look like. Like, why do we know what they look like, right? I think this would have been better handled with a flashback. Like, you have Eris tell what she knows of her people, even though she shouldn't really know anything at this point, but that's a different story. But if you want to do that, like, if you want to show the ancients, if you want to have a flashback to the ancients, that's how you do it. You have Eris tell you what she knows or what her mother told her, and then you can have the flashback, and the flashback could actually have even more information than she is telling you, if you want. But this is Shinra's telling the story of what they know of the ancients. And I mean, despite it being bad because of the hologram, like, I guess it's whatever, right? You learn that their plan is Neo Midgar. They want to find the promised land and build an even better Midgar on it and suck up all the Mako, and which is the plot from the original game, so it's fine. But then it gets interrupted. The hologram gets interrupted by Sephiroth. And he kills your party. He kills Cloud. He kills Barrett and Tifa in front of Cloud. And then he shows you or he summons Meteor. Cloud sees Meteor, or actually the whole party sees Meteor before they get killed, and then they get killed, and then Sephiroth says something, I forget what it is, but then it stops, and you're like, oh, did Cloud just have another hallucination, right? And then the party's like, what was that big meteor? And you're like, what the fuck? Did they see that too? Did they see that they got killed? Like, it doesn't make any sense, you know? It's dumb. It's fucking... So now, once again, that feeling of like, oh god, like, is like creeping in on me. But I'm like, whatever, I can ignore it. So you exit the hologram thing, and then you find out that Mayor Domino has been fucking with security cameras and stuff to make sure that you guys don't get caught, because he's secretly helping Avalanche, and he hates Shinra. Now, in the original, he's doing something similar, where he's against Shinra because they took away his power and they took away his position. But in this one, he's like really involved, and he has like control over security cameras and stuff, which doesn't make any sense. You know, like, why would he have control over the security for the building? Why would they let him do that? In the original, they just make him a librarian. Like, anyway. So whatever, you team up with Mayor Domino, he sends you to some other guy. Going through the... Like, it's no longer a series of puzzles that you have to actually think to figure out. It's just go to this spot and get the next key. So, like, in the original, Mayor Domino gives you a puzzle to figure out what the... Like, he says, I'll give you the key if you can figure out what word I'm thinking of, right? And there's a puzzle you can do. If you do the puzzle correctly, he gives you the key and he gives you a bonus. If you just guess randomly, he'll give you the key. In this, he's like, oh, you have to find my guy. And the way you find him is there's a password. So you're like, all right, cool. I'm going to have to figure out who the guy is by going through, you know, all these people and trying to figure out, maybe I have to watch people and see if they do anything weird. I have to find the person who supports Avalanche, right? So you run through, and there's a fucking arrow pointing at the dude. Now, I don't know, maybe there's another person there that, like, you, if you talk to and they give you something, you know? But, like, I talked to a few people, they're not it, and then I see an arrow pointing at a guy. Like, a guy is highlighted, and he's standing outside another VR chamber, and that's the guy. And I'm like, that's terrible. Like, what part... Like, I didn't have to think about that at all. Like... God! And then he makes you do a fight. And that's it. And then you have basically your last key card. There's a cute little scene where Tifa doesn't want to go in the male's bathroom to spy on the meeting that they have. But you spy on it, you follow Hojo, same as the first game. So this part's different. Hojo is just as creepy, and he's like, he messes with Eris psychologically, tells her that he dissected her mother, which is really, oof. You know, if you want to make a villain, that's how you make a villain. I was curious how they were going to handle the whole trying to breed Eris with Red 13 thing. Because that shit's weird in the original. Let me put this into context. So, in the original game, Hojo has these two species who are the last of their kind. He has Red 13, which is a lion dog with a fiery tail, and he has Eris, which is the last of the ancients. So he wants to breed them to make like a new specimen that will live for the amount of time it will take to test that new specimen. Now there's obviously some genetic issues here, but the idea is that Hojo doesn't give a fuck. Like, he doesn't see people as people, he just sees them as science experiments. So he's, you know, he's treating Eris like a guinea pig, basically. You know, like how they would breed animals in the lab and then do tests on them. That's the idea. It's not. I don't think it's supposed to be like a creepy sex thing, even though it's weird. In this, he's thinking of having a soldier rape her. Like he's thinking of having one of the genetically altered soldiers from the soldier program basically rape her. And I was like, that's dark. That's actually pretty evil, you know. I was surprised that the party doesn't like act disgusted by that. You know, like you think Tifa would be like, oh God, like that. You know, you think she would be like fucking pissed, and the Cloud too. You think he'd lose his fucking shit at hearing that, but no one really says anything. I mean, I guess they didn't want to get into that subject, but whatever. But he's also talking about Eris won't cooperate, and he's trying to get her to cooperate, so he's thinking of scaring her. So I was thinking he's going to put Red 13 in the cage with her to scare her. And that's not what happens. You follow Hojo, you fight a boss. Red 13 is completely separate from Eris. You don't interact with him at all. And I tried. I tried like to go knock on the glass. Like Tifa, you know, touches the glass and she's like, what are they doing with this guy? In the original, in this one, you just completely ignore him. You go to Eris. Barrett shoots open Eris's chamber, and then magically Red 13's chamber opens, even though it's a floor below. And then he jumps up to meet you guys, which doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. And then Eris goes up to him and pats his head and says, "Don't worry about this one. He's just a kid," well, something like that. And I'm like, you know, like it kind of makes. I mean, in the original, Red 13 is this kind of quiet, and comes off kind of wise creature, and the party assumes that he's mature, right? And until they run into his grandfather, and his grandfather's like, "These guys live for centuries. He's still a cub, basically." And he's like, "No, I'm not. I'm a big boy," you know, like a kid would do. In this, Aerith just knows he's a kid right away. And I don't know. I feel like that took something away from. I feel like the whole him not scaring her and all that stuff took away from their meeting, because in the original he feels bad that he scared her. Like he does it to play along with Hojo's scheme, so that Hojo lowers his guard and he can attack Hojo. And later on he says, "I feel guilty for not apologizing to Aerith for scaring her the first time we met." You know, it's like it's a little thing that develops his character and makes him awesome. And we are robbed of that in the remake, as we are robbed of a lot of little things. But like it's still good, so I was like, all right, whatever. You don't encounter Jenova first. In the original, Jenova is stored in a large container next to Red 13, but she's there. And you look inside and you see this weird thing. It looks like a lady's body, but it's got like eyes in weird places, and it has no head. And Cloud's mind goes nuts, and he falls back. And then Barrett's like, "What's wrong?" And then he looks inside and he's like, "Why is this? It's got no head." And this, you don't have that. Cloud, what happens? Cloud faints. I forget if you go into the Jenova room and then Cloud faints. Something happens. Oh, you get close to the elevator that goes to Jenova's area and Cloud faints. He has like the same kind of moment and then faints. So then what happens is you end up in Aerith's, where they kept her as a child, which I wasn't aware they did. I mean, in the original, it seems like Ifalna's just on the run with her daughter until finally she succumbs to some kind of sickness or wound in Midgar, and then Aerith is adopted. In this one, it seems like they were taken to Midgar by Shinra, and Aerith kind of grew up in the Shinra building for a little bit, and then they escaped. Which is fine. I don't mind that change. I don't like that they don't get caught. You know, I kind of like the fact that they're caught and held in prison, and you have the moments with the characters. And this one, the specters show up, and Eris is like, every time they touch me, I lose a little bit more of myself. Which I'm done with the specters at this point, so I'm rolling my eyes. And then Tifa pulls her out, and she's like, don't worry, we'll figure this out together, which is a sweet moment. One thing I like about Remake is they totally get that these two are best friends. They're a little bit romantic rivals, but they're best friends first, which is why they don't they never openly fight about Cloud's affections, which I think would be a little too crass or too, I don't know, dumb. Like, I like their relationship in both games. It's done very well in both games. So anyway, we're gonna escape, right? And we're gonna escape through Genova's chamber. For some reason, Genova's chamber is huge, and it looks like it should be a basement, but it's on like the top floor. It's like right under the president's, right under the president's room, which doesn't make any sense to me. In the original, the science lab is not that big, and it's just, that's where the science lab is. It's a big area, but it's not like 1,000 feet up and down. You know what I mean? In this, it's a huge empty chamber. Genova's in the middle, and they're using her to make monsters. And it's a cool area. I like it, and I like that you have to split between two parties with Red 13 kind of helping each party. But it doesn't make sense where it is structurally in the building. Like, it should be in a basement or something like that. So you finish that, you run into Sephiroth again, and he breaks Jenova out. And then you have to climb up through whatever. So you get to the point where Sephiroth has removed Jenova, and you catch up to him, and you end up fighting Jenova. I think it's called Jenova Synthesis or something. It's like just Jenova Dreamweaver, something like that. It hints that this is not real, right? The fight. And you fight like her weird kind of shape-shifting creature form, which I think is cool. One thing that the Jenova fight's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't mind it being where it is. I do mind. Alright, so what happens before the Jenova fight is you find the president of Shinra. He's not dead. He's hanging off of a railing, and Barrett's going to shoot him, and the party's like, no, Barrett, you can't. And in my head, I'm like, why can't he? We've been killing all these grunts and random people. We've been fighting all these soldiers that are just doing their job and presumably killing them. Why can't Barrett kill the guy who's actually responsible for all this shit? We're not Batman. If it was Batman and he killed him, I'd be pissed off. But it makes sense for Barrett to kill him, right? It makes sense for Tifa to want to kill him. He's responsible for their hometown being burned down and for the flowers dying, But anyway, so Barrett says to the president, you're going to clear our names. You're going to tell him what really happened. And then Sephiroth shows up and stabs the president. And then he stabs Barrett. And I roll my eyes incredibly hard as Barrett falls to the floor, because I know that they're not going to kill Barrett. Right? I know. It's not just that I played the original game. I know that they're just not going to fucking kill Barrett. So this is a meaningless death. And we're moving into Dragon Ball Z territory, where characters die, but not really, So we're jumping into it's like we're dipping our feet into the pool of bad that is we're about to jump into. So then Sephiroth turns into Jenova, blah blah blah, Jenova fight. When the fight's over, the illusion goes away, and we see that Sephiroth is actually one of this guy Arsik guys. It's one of the clones, and he's holding Jenova's body. Now, in the original, Jenova frees herself. She'd been dormant for a long time. All of a sudden, she's not dormant for some reason. and she breaks herself out of the chamber. She shapeshifts into Sephiroth's form, and she murders everybody in the science lab, which frees the party. And she murders the president of Shinra. I don't think she does this on purpose. I think he's in the way. He's there, so he gets murdered. And she does this as Sephiroth. People assume that it's Sephiroth's will that is doing this. The reason she might have broken out is her proximity to Cloud, or it might have been that Sephiroth has ingrained or gotten so much power from the life stream that he is now able to project his will into Jenova. None of these things are explicitly stated. This is, you draw your own conclusions with these, but it seems to be one of those things, right? In this, it seems like the clones are carrying Jenova's body out, which means Jenova's body is somewhat like defenseless. It seems like the Genovas you're going to be fighting are going to be in your mind, which I think is weird, right? That's not as threatening as fighting a shape-shifting giant monster that, narrowly, that just, when you cut off one of its arms, it runs away and the arm stays, Anyway. So Jenova, Sephiroth, the clone, whatever, escapes. And then you fight Rufus. The Rufus fight is pretty good. It's a little difficult if you're not prepared. I find a lot of the boss fights in this game, or a lot of the fights in general, are you go into the fight and you realize that your materia setup is wrong for what you're trying to do. Like, say you have a general setup, like maybe you're missing like some of the weaknesses because you don't know what the enemy's weaknesses are going to be. Like, you can say, I think I'm going to fight a mech, so let me bring lightning. Or I think I'm going to fight dudes, so let me bring fire. But, like, a lot of this game is you get into a fight, you realize you don't have the proper setup, and then you reload a save and set yourself up correctly, and then you do the fight. Right? Which I find to be kind of annoying. I mean, in the original game, you fought different enemies and they weren't that difficult, like you could make it through with items and attacks if you had to. But in this game, like, it's hard. The bosses are bullet sponges. If you can't stagger them, or you don't have their right weaknesses, the fights take a long time. It's not that they're difficult; it's they take forever. And they, you use ethers and healing items, and you're like, that doesn't feel good to do. To use all my stuff on this one fight. I mean, of course, you don't have to do it that way, but it seems like, unless you want to be there for longer in a game that already has a lot of padding, like you scout out the fight, see what the weaknesses are, and then you prepare yourself for them and go back into the fight with the proper stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it seems a little weird. It's just a side note. It's not bad. It's not good, but it's not bad. Like, it doesn't ruin the game. It's just a thing I noticed. So anyway, back to the story. You fight Rufus, and then you have a nice climactic boss fight in the Shinra building with another mech, and then you escape, and you're on the highway. Cloud's on his bike on the highway. And then they stop. They stop and pull over, and they look at the specters, which are now surrounding the Shinra building for some reason, right? They're swirling around all over. There's millions of them, and they're covering the whole Shinra building. And you're gawking, and the chase is interrupted, and then it restarts again. Now you do the chase scene proper. You're running away. Soldiers are coming. It's fun. It's a little difficult because you don't really. Like, when you accelerate, like in the old game, you could just move around freely, and it's very easy to catch up to the other bikers. In this game, it's a little. It's difficult to sort of catch up to things. Like, the acceleration doesn't accelerate you very much. I don't know how to say it, but it takes a second to position yourself correctly in order to protect your party members and in order to attack the other bikers. and other enemies that you're going to be fighting. It's fine. You know, it's fun. It's fine. The music's fantastic. It looks great. It's just there's a little issues, but they're not. It's fine. You fight the boss on the bike completely, which is interesting. It's fun. And then you get to the end of the highway, and you look back at the swirling tornado of specters, and then Sephiroth is waiting for you at the end of the highway, and he starts talking about fate and changing fate, and he wants to redo things, and he cuts a hole open in so the specters are surrounding Midgar as well, not just the Shinra building, and he cuts a hole in their swirling mass, and it creates what looks like a portal to some other place. And he steps through, and he's like, Cloud, follow me, and we'll change fate together. And Eris says, no, don't follow him. And then she opens her own portal, somehow, a glowy, shiny one this time, where Sephiroth's was dark and scary. She can do this for some reason. Like I don't know. There's no explanation why she can do this. There's no reason. Obviously, the reason is she's an ancient, so why not? And she's don't go through Sephiroth's. Go through this one, and we will defy fate. You will defy fate with me. And the party's like, yeah, let's do it. And my brain is hurting at this point because this shit has come out of nowhere. Why are they all like, oh yeah, this is what we have to do? You know, like, we're not sure what these things are. Apparently Eris and maybe Red 13 for some reason know what they are, but we don't really know what their motive is. But we have to go fight and kill them now. Like, we have to wipe them out because they stand for destiny, and we don't like that. So the game tells you this is going to be the final battle, so you prepare, and then you step through the portal. And you end up fighting. The ghosts turn into Ghostzilla. A literal, 1,000-foot tall, giant, weird Kingdom Hearts looking ghost with terrible design. And then 3 other ghosts come and fight you man to man. And one has a sword, one uses fists, and one uses guns. And you scan them, and the descriptions are they are from a future, I believe, that and they're trying to preserve that timeline. It's very, it's dumb. it's just really stupid. So you fight them. There's hints that they might be the party. Like, they might be Barrett, Cloud, and Tifa from the future, or they might represent the fate, the spirits that guided the original Barrett, Cloud, and Tifa to the original ending of the original game, which is apparently, not good, like the bad ending, I guess. So you fight them in a fight. It's very spectacular looking. It takes place in a void. You're on a highway in a giant void with Ghostzilla in the background, doing whatever the hell he's doing. And you're fighting these things, and when you damage them, you get to hurt Ghostzilla. Then they combine into Bahamut for no reason. A very small Bahamut. And you fight that, and it does a lot of damage to you, sort of, sometimes. And you beat it, and then they split up, and then you beat them again, and then when you beat them, Ghostzilla dies. And it's a very stupid fight. It makes no sense. If this thing controls fate, that makes it something like a god or a deity of some sort, I would imagine. And you just killed it. You know? In the original game, at this point, the party is so behind Sephiroth in terms of power that fighting him would be a wipeout. He would wipe the floor with you in one shot and move on, right? In Final Fantasy VII Remake, you've killed a god at this point, possibly. And the power scaling is just retarded. Excuse me for using that word. Apparently I'm not supposed to, but whatever. So now, after you kill Ghostzilla, Sephiroth shows up, and the background changes colors, and you're in Midgar, sort of. There's no people around. Things are destroyed, sort of. And it feels very Advent Children. And Sephiroth challenges Cloud to a duel, wherein he hurls the Shinra building at Cloud, a la Advent Children, and a bunch of debris, and Cloud is separated from the party. He does that thing where he cuts the debris that's falling at him, which would have been useful to be able to do when you were trying to get out of Hojo's lab, or when you were trying to get back into Sector 7, or when you were trying to get the key card out of the... Right? So it's stupid. And then, so you fight Sephiroth one-on-one. He doesn't wipe the floor with you. This is a boss fight that you're supposed to win. And you can stand up to him. You can carry You can parry his attacks. You can counter him. You can drain his health. The party joins you as you fight him. Supposedly, it depends on the character's affection or whatever. For me, it was Tifa and Aerith joining me. It's very Advent Children. He gets one wing, One Wing Angel plays. It's a cool fight, It's a fun fight. Like if someone was like, "Hey, you want to play something cool?" and I played that fight only, I would be like, "That was cool." But in the context of the game, it makes no sense. We don't really know who Sephiroth is, really. We're fighting him. We're beating him. It's just, it comes out of nowhere. It's fan service. And you feel that, and your brain hurts, or at least mine did. A lot of people, I guess, were excited, but I can't. So you beat him. You beat him in the boss fight, but then you lose, right? Because you can't beat him yet, even though you just beat him. And then he says to Cloud, he takes Cloud somewhere. He says it's the edge of existence or whatever. And he tells Cloud, he beats Cloud in cutscene. He disarms him, and he's like, 7 seconds. You have 7 seconds to change fate or some shit like that. Alluding to the fact that there's going to be a decision that will take place in 7 seconds. It's got to be 7 seconds because of Final Fantasy VII. And this will change the shape of Destiny or whatever. And that's it. And then he disappears, and you've murdered Destiny, the Destiny Ghost. So the Destiny Ghosts disappear. There's a weird cut to Zack, who in the context of the game, we have no idea who he is. This is the first time we're seeing... If Final Fantasy VII Remake is the first Final Fantasy VII game that you've played, you have no idea who this guy is. It cuts to him. He's fighting a bunch of guys in the desert, it looks like. There's a ghost tornado behind him. And after you kill the ghost boss, it cuts back to Zack again, and it's like... He's like, "Oh, I won." And then he goes and gets Cloud and walks off with him. Then it goes back to the party, and Cloud is holding Sephiroth's feather in his hand, and he crushes it or whatever, and it disappears, and he's like, "Oh, we have to go after Sephiroth because he's up to something, I guess." And then Aerith is like, "Well, we've changed fate, so fate is destiny is not destiny." Marlene senses something, I guess. Barrett reaches out for her. It's bad. It's really terrible. So then the party walks off, and Aerith senses that Zack is alive, maybe, in possibly a different timeline or a different reality, because they're not there together, and Cloud is still Cloud. He still has the Buster Sword, but apparently in a different timeline, Zack survived his fate, his death, and it showed that it's a different timeline because a package of Stamp potato chips wafts by in the air, and you can see that it's a different dog. And it's terrible. It's awful. And it tells you that the unknown journey will continue. And then it cuts to the credits. And in the final hour or so of Final Fantasy VII Remake, the game had I felt like the game had held me down and just shit in my mouth. It was so good, right? It was so good. The little changes they had made up to that last point were so good. Like, I would be less upset if it was right at the beginning. They're like, we're doing something different. You know, this is not a remake, it's a sequel, and we want to do something different. I would have been like, well, I knew that this was going to be shit, but let's give it a shot because I like these characters. But they hide that. They hide the fact that they're doing that, and they marketed this game as this is Final Fantasy VII. It's only the Midgar part, but it's Final Fantasy VII again, with some changes, some little change. We added some stuff, but it's the same game. And then they throw Destiny, they throw Final Fantasy 13, they throw Lightning's bullshit in here. It's fucking terrible, man. It's so terrible. For the first 16 chapters, I would say it was, the characters are real people. They have real motivations. Every scene that doesn't have those ghosts in it is phenomenal. Tifa feels like Tifa. She feels like a real person with real thoughts. She's empathetic. She's strong. She's brave. Cloud is a dope, but he's like trying to be cool, and he's trying to be apathetic, and he doesn't want people to get close, but he likes everybody, and he enjoys being with them, and he enjoys being part of the family. Eris is like optimistic, and she's kind, and she's like trying to like look out for people and help people, and she doesn't want to be like the princess that has to be saved, but also she needs help sometimes. And Barrett, he wants to do the right thing for the planet. He wants to make sure his daughter is protected. And he's willing to make some sacrifices as long as they're not hidden to achieve that goal, which he's gonna. I mean, in the original, he grows to realize that was a problem, but that's who he is, And Red 13, although he's not in this game much, he's cool. He doesn't really have any deep, character development points, but his appearance is cool. Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse are great. Yeah, and after the end, I think it's after the credits or right before the credits, we see that Biggs is still alive, and possibly Jesse is still alive and taking care of him. Wedge was still alive, and he tried to help us in our attack on the Shinra building, but he doesn't because the Spectres stop him. Now, part of the things that pisses me off about these Spectres is after you play the game, it becomes apparent that they're a metaphor for the fans of the original game who wanted to see the original game again, the original storyline, untarnished, right? And so that's why they help they force the characters to do things the way they did in the original game. Now, I have some problems. I have some issues with this. Issue number one is you don't shit on your fucking fans. You don't. Final Fantasy VII, if it wasn't a success, there would be no Square Enix. Squaresoft would have gone kaput, and RPGs in the West would not have, or JRPGs in the West would. Actually, RPGs themselves probably wouldn't be what they are. Like, you can't tell me the people who made Mass Effect and all these other RPGs in the West weren't influenced by Final Fantasy VII. Like, you can't tell me that. Video game cinematics, movie, CG, like a lot of things were influenced by this game. You don't shit on the fans of the original game for wanting the original game remastered for a new generation. Like, you don't shit on them for that. Like, that's scummy. You know? You owe your career to these people loving this thing that you did back in the past. And if you tell them, like, okay, I'll do it, you know, like, if you don't want to remake Final Fantasy VII, then don't remake Final Fantasy VII. Simple as that. Just don't do it. Don't make it and then shit on the people who you feel like they forced you to make it. You know, don't fucking do that. God. And also, like, you're proving in this game that they were correct. Because all the changes that have to do with this Destiny stuff, every scene with these specters is worse because these specters are in it. Every scene. The scenes that are good carry the same feel of the original game. You know? Like, the characters, just being the characters from the original game, fantastic. The scene where the pillar falls is exciting. You're losing Biggs and Jesse, possibly Wedge, right? Like, and you care about that. But these freaking specters are flying in your face and distracting you and ruining the scene. And it's dumb. It's dumb. There's a scene where in the Shinra building where Wedge is still alive and he's trying to help the party, and the specters stop him from helping the party. And it's as if the developers are saying, see, we could have Wedge have done something cool here, but because you guys want the same old story, he can't do it. And it's like, fucking no, like, what we have is good. Like, we don't need Wedge to have a heroic moment. You know, he kind of already did that when he defended the pillar from being, you know, like, he had his heroic moments when he helps you with the dogs, when he being an Avalanche Wedge is a scared guy. Is a scared, out of shape guy who believes in fighting for the planet. And he has his heroic moments by being an Avalanche. And that's why his loss is sad. You know, like, anyway. And then, you know, so you destroy the fans, basically, of the original game, and then the creators are free to do whatever they want. And I would be more open to that if they haven't already failed at that multiple times. You know, Dirge of Cerberus is terrible. Advent Children is awful. Crisis Core I thought was terrible. There's some good things in Crisis Core, but Crisis Core as a whole I think is awful. Like, they've already proven, and they prove in this game, that they can't handle this storyline. Like, they can't revisit it without shitting all over it. Like, whatever magic was there at the beginning is not there anymore. And what really kills me about this game is they make it seem like it's back. You know, there's a lot of moments in this game that are fantastic, and it feels like the original Final Fantasy VII, and those are the moments that I think are pulling people into the game. Even people who are like, oh, I want to see what the difference is going to be. Those people are happy because of the moments that are like the original game fleshed out. Like, that's why they're happy. If the whole game was Destiny and fighting Destiny and not making any sense and talking like space people from anime space people, like, this game would not have been a hit. And I think even Square Enix knows that. I'm so angry. Like, this is a sequel. This game is a sequel. Sephiroth knows what's going on. Aerith seems to know what's going on. I'm not looking forward to the next one. Like, after this ending, I'm just not looking forward to the next. I was up until chapter 17 or whatever, where things start to feel even more and more dumb. I was happy, and they were just like, nope, shit in your face. And now, like, they spare Zack in another timeline. I can't imagine that they're just going to leave that at that, right? They're not going to not mention that again. you're gonna run into Zack, right? There's gonna be a moment where the power of friendship, you combine forces and fight Sephiroth together or some shit. Some stupid shit. Right? Maybe they'll kill Tifa instead of Aerith for the shock value. Right? Cloud goes to save Aerith and he saves her, but Sephiroth says, "Oh, well, you still need motivation. I'll kill Tifa." You know? Or he just won't kill her at all. Or he kills her and you bring her back to life. Like some stupid shit. Already characters are dying and then being resurrected. Barrett is stabbed, he's resurrected. Avalanche, the team goes down, but they're fine. Already death is meaningless in this game. You know? It's awful. And I could see the pale moon rising. Like I could see in the future it's going to be awful. And I wish I was optimistic like a lot of people are, and I wish I could not feel this way, and I wish I could just enjoy the game. But it's gone. Like those feelings are gone. And the biggest, what's that line from Bronx Tale? It's like the saddest thing in the world is wasted talent. And I feel like this game had so much potential. I feel like this could have been the best RPG. Even just the Midgar part would have been like the best RPG in recent memory. Even though you don't make a lot of decisions, it was the best. Let's say it was the best storytelling in video games for a while. You know, God of War was really good. There's a lot of other games that are really good, and this stood among them until the end, where it jumped into the toilet and flushed itself. And yeah, that's it. My looking forward to the next one is now kaput. All right, I think that's it. I think that's all my thoughts. I'll probably do a more written review, more thought out with images and pictures and walking you through my thought process. But I just wanted to get my feelings out. You know. So, all right. Thanks for listening. If you listened to this whole rant, this is almost 2 hours on the dot. I appreciate it if you did. If you disagree with me, tell me about it. I'd love to hear it in the comments. If you agree with me, I also like to know that I'm not alone. Yeah. All right. So thanks for listening, everybody. And I'll see you in the future, I guess. Bye.